I'm Kaylee, and this is the Victorian Literature Journey Tag. This tag was created by Ross at Scally Dangeline About the Books and Tilly at Tilly's Shelf. So they got inspired to redo the Shakespeare Journey Tag, except for Victorian literature instead. So they reworked these questions from the Shakespeare Journey Tag, which was created by the hosts of the Shakespeare Readathon. That was Old Blues, Chapter and Verse, Books I'm Not Reading, and A Day of Small Things. So all of them will be linked in the description. Be sure to go over and subscribe to all of them if you love Shakespeare and Victorian literature. And be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and follow me over on Goodreads and Instagram and Storygraph and all the places. Question 1. What was your first experience reading Victorian literature and how was it? My first experience reading any classics was these editions of children's classics that my parents bought for us when we were kids. And I think probably the first Victorian one of those that I read was Oliver Twist. These were simplified stories for children with lovely illustrations in them. I think these are still today a fantastic way to introduce classics to little kids. We had a ton of these growing up, and I read a bunch of them and just fell in love with classics. And really, these books led to me being who I am today and loving to read as much as I do. Question number 2, has the reading of a Victorian book ever brought you to tears? Oh yes, absolutely. I cry a lot at books anyway, and Victorian novels seem to have a lot of deaths in them. Little Dorrit and Ye Olde Curiosity Shop and Jane Eyre, and the one I've been recently reading, North and South. All of these books have a lot of deaths and very poignant deaths, and sometimes deaths where children die, and it's just so sad. And the way it's written is often very moving, and so yeah, I cry a lot at Victorian novels. Question number 3, are there any people who played a significant role in your Victorian literary journey? As I've already said, my parents, of course, played a huge role in my love of literature. All my life, they have guided my reading, and my mom taught me to read because I was homeschooled. They would read aloud to us when we were little kids, and they bought me books, and just yeah, they always really encouraged us to read a lot. But another person who has influenced specifically my Victorian literature journey was my friend Rebecca. She and I became friends, oh my goodness, like 15 years ago or something. And she really introduced me to a lot of more obscure Victorian authors that I had never heard of before, or that I just hadn't read very much from them. And so she was very instrumental in kind of broadening my Victorian horizons. Question number 4, do you have a favorite film or TV adaptation of a Victorian book, or one that you would like to see made? There are so many great adaptations of Victorian literature, it's hard to choose just one. Some of the ones that are in my mind right now, because I'm reading those books, are North and South with Richard Armitage as John Thornton, and I just love him as John Thornton. And another favorite is David Copperfield with a young Daniel Radcliffe playing young David, and with the incomparable Dame Maggie Smith as David's aunt, Betsy Trotwood. That's another one of my favorite adaptations. I think that one's really well done as well. But there are a ton. There are just so many really, really great ones that I can't even think of them all. But those are a couple of my favorites that are in my mind right now. Question number 5, which character in Victorian literature most resembles you, or do you identify with the most? This was really difficult. I thought about this one, trying to figure out what character do I most resemble? And I really just don't have an answer. There are a lot of characters that I identify with some particular aspect of their personality, or something that happens to them, or, you know, just some particular, even like a particular skill that they have, or some way that they behave. But I don't know that there's one character that I can just say, ooh, that's me. But little bits and pieces of different characters, I feel like, oh yeah, I totally get that because I'm that way too. So I've narrowed down the list to 6 Victorian characters that I feel like some little piece of their personality resembles me in some small way. So Molly from Wives and Daughters, Jane from Jane Eyre, Bathsheba in Far from the Madding Crowd, Eleanor from The Warden, Maggie in Mill on the Floss, and Margaret from North and South. Question number 6, do you have a favorite moment, scene, or line from Victorian literature? This is just impossible to choose. I mean, it's impossible to choose a favorite because there are so many powerful scenes and really great lines and just amazing moments in Victorian literature. But one of the ones that is currently in my mind, because I just read it, is the bracelet scene in North and South, when John Thornton is noticing a bracelet on Margaret's wrist. If you know, you know. For some reason, in the entire novel of North and South, that one little scene, because it is so subtle and because it is so small, it feels really, really important compared to the epic scope of all kind of other stuff going on in the novel. That one little scene feels like it really stands out. Question 7, does any Victorian literature intimidate you? And if so, what and why? So I feel like Victorian literature doesn't really intimidate me anymore because I've just read so much of it and I've become comfortable with it, I guess. I also remember being intimidated the first time that I read Middlemarch because it's just so dense. It's just very dense writing. You really have to be in the mood to read Middlemarch. You have to be very focused, you know. But once I got past the first 50 pages, I'm not sure if I just kind of got used to that style, and so it kind of flowed along a little bit better for me, or if the story does finally pick up after that. So I was able to go through it and enjoy that one as well. Question number 8, what tips would you give to someone early on in their Victorian literature journey? If you're just starting out with Victorian literature, then I would say just to start small. Start with a smaller book, something like A Christmas Carol, or really start with Sherlock Holmes. Start with some short stories that are really easy to understand and easy to get through. And then when you have stretched your reading muscles a little bit, then you can take on something a little more challenging. You can kind of build up to some of those bigger, more epic novels. And another tip would be don't read the descriptions of classics because they invariably contain spoilers. And I would say another tip is to look for recommendations online of people that you really trust their reading taste, that you've seen other stuff that they've read and you can recognize that their reading taste is similar to yours. And so if they said they liked such and such classic, you will most likely like it as well. Question number 9, what is your top recommended read for other readers of Victorian literature? I would say that Sherlock Holmes is an obvious place to start, whether you're a beginner or whether you have read a lot of Victorian literature. Everybody just needs to read Sherlock Holmes because it's just amazing. And the one I'm reading now, North and South, seems to be a universal favorite. Everybody loves North and South. However, a lot of my other favorites can be sort of controversial. Some of my big favorites are like Jane Eyre and David Copperfield and The Moonstone. But those books can be sort of polarizing. People either really love it or they really hate it. I mean, certainly I recommend that you try it. You might end up loving it. But I guess I always feel kind of funny recommending it to people when I know that so many people don't like it. But there's an equal amount of people who super love them the way I do. So, it could go either way. Who knows? Question number 10 is just to tag some people. So if you love Victorian literature and you want to do this tag, then I tag you. I never know who to tag. I'm always sitting here like, I don't know, people? Somebody? I don't know who to tag. I have no idea. Please do leave a comment and let me know your answers to some of these questions. Just what is some of your favorite Victorian literature that you love and that you would recommend to others? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and remember the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.